Challenges in Halo have changed quite a bit from 2008. They have turned from some simple but cool grenade jumps to get somewhere the devs forgot to clip off, to having elaborate glitch after glitch to clip into the cutscene room at the start of Exodus. These have evolved so much, and so have all the talented individuals that partake in bringing Halo to its knees. Termacious Trickocity is a group of trickers, and they reached out to me to talk about some of the stuff that they're working on figuring out. So today, I present to you Halo's challenges that are deemed, currently, impossible. A trick in Halo is defined as some sort of glitch, jump, or launch that is generally seen as impressive in any way. Stuff like completing the Halo 3 Warthog Run vehicle lists, or glitching into the giant sandwich in Infinite are great examples. Over the course of Halo history, groups began to form that would focus on doing crazy tricks across the franchise. With the rise of multiplayer games, this art form has become less and less popular, but there are still some absolute legends that still do it. Like the focus of today's video, Termacious Trickocity. Termacious Trickocity graciously gifted me a spreadsheet that lines up most of the tricks and challenges that they are attempting to crack, so if you feel like you could help out in any way, or you're interested in Halo tricking, the Termacious Trickocity Discord, as well as their channel that is full of montages, tutorials, and beautiful edits that you should definitely watch, will be linked in the description. Special thank you to Hark, Drunk Sniper, Hybrid's Ego, Poral, and Slinky for directly contributing to the spreadsheet, for the creation and organization of it all, and for answering my page-long question list with pages of clarifications. The way these are organized is by how possible these challenges are. Also, concerning acrophobia, there will be a little graphic in the bottom left that will let you know if acrophobia is allowed for the trick. Pretty much all of the launches would be extremely trivialized without this rule. There are 4 ratings in terms of possibility, those being possible, somewhat possible, conceptually possible, and currently impossible, represented by these colors. Impossible means there is no current idea that could even result in this without fundamental changes to the game. Conceptually possible is when there could technically be an idea there, but there's some weird thing getting in the way. Somewhat possible is when there's just one more hurdle before the idea is set in stone. And possible refers to tricks that have a route or are close but just need to be pulled off. Let's waste no more time and get into some really cool challenges. This challenge requires reaching the top of the map on the Pillar of Autumn out of bounds. Currently, with every way known, this challenge is impossible. There isn't anything that flies to possess, and there also isn't anything to launch with. Getting to the bottom of the pit on the Silent Cartographer is up next. A theoretical method is known, but it also requires being able to dead and alive in this BSP. The pit is located inside the security override room. As of right now, there is no known way to dead and alive right here, but there is a way later in the level in the shaft here. This is marked as somewhat possible. The next one is getting to the bottom of the map in the Maw from this cutscene area. There is a method known to get out of bounds earlier in the level by jumping on a sentinel and your fat green ass weighing down the sentinel. Getting out of the bridge area hasn't been done. Because getting out of bounds has been done, just not in the right area, this is marked as somewhat possible. I feel like this is something that every player has thought about at one point. Completing the Warthog run without a Warthog has technically been done by possessing 343 Guilty Spark by Poral, but they had to use acrophobia to do it. Doing this without the use of acrophobia is somewhat possible. The only known dead and alive locations are on the library, the shaft cutscene in the Silent Cartographer, and the Truth and Reconciliation lift. There isn't a known way to currently dead and alive in any other location since its discovery earlier this year by Amadeus. Currently, with the method known, this challenge is impossible. The main problem with AUPing a biped from a cutscene, that being the ones that play the animations, is that the player is not able to play the game during the cutscene. This extends to certain areas not being able to be clipped into, like Cat's death area and Reach, due to that being only loaded during the cutscene. This is more of a dream than anything. In Halo CE, this is somewhat possible, but in Halo 2, this is possible. This is a specific thing in the Pillar of Autumn cutscene that actually technically isn't in the game, and only exists in a cutscene. This is conceptually possible, but because of the game not allowing loading cutscene elements while playing. The current way to drive a Shadow or Phantom using possession results in first person. However, driving one in third person is a bit more complex. You need to AUP the pilot of said vehicle, which sounds simple, but once you do possess them, you teleport to the other player and it kicks you out. You cannot get back in, so the main problem is the teleportation. There is no known way to not have you teleport, so for right now, these challenges are conceptually possible. If you didn't know, there is an elite on Gravemind that has its face and helmet randomized. Quick funny thing about this is that it can actually randomize to Artas's face. Finding an AUP setup for this elite would be pretty sick, but also it would take an extremely long time to pull off since this elite spawns at the end of the level. To quote Hark on this, in theory it's possible, but in practice it's gonna be ass. So for right now, until someone masochistic enough makes a setup, it is considered possible. AUPing on Delta Halo in general is just a guessing game. Because combat starts immediately, it is almost impossible to predict the salt value to AUP anything. There are also only 2 ODSTs, so you don't have very many opportunities to possess them. Theoretically it's possible, but no one would enjoy performing a bunch of the same button presses hoping it works over dozens of attempts. This is considered possible, but I doubt anyone will want to do this. It's possible with a memory viewer that shows the salt value, but that isn't allowed for this challenge as it's still a mod. Playing on cutscene BSPs is kind of a strange one. You basically have to trick the game into loading a specific BSP earlier than normal. This has been done, but with a few, like the Gravemind cutscene or the Space cutscene in Delta Halo, or the Great Journey epilogue, for example, have an extra script telling the game to load the correct BSP. The main thing here is the ability to load whichever BSPs we want at will in-game. Currently, this is conceptually possible and, quote, years away. The Sentinel emitters are those things that spit out aggressor sentinels, and they only appear on Sacred Icon. In the code, these are actually vehicles and work by having sentinels exit them as if it was a vehicle. The gravity throne is the little seat that the prophets sit on. Plug absorbers are a unique case. They are those elevator things that you open. While they aren't vehicles, there is a vehicle variant in the files. The problem with these specific AUPs is that they need to be deloaded, and the standard deload doesn't work on these. Now you might be asking, but Poral already AUP'd the gravity throne on Regret, and that is true, but you are confined to a small space. But there actually is a gravity throne on Sacred Icon. Using mods, you can enter the Sacred Icon intro cutscene, and there is a gravity throne here, likely from the cutscene. AUPing this might be slightly difficult due to the deload requirement, and it also can't be deloaded. Therefore, this is conceptually possible. There was actually a planned Halo 2 Warthog run. There are recreations with mods that you can try, but it still actually exists in the files. You can pretty easily see it by just flying around the other side of High Charity, and an anniversary graphics looking in specific spots will load it, but reaching it is a whole nother challenge. Not only is it invisible most of the time, it is also behind a massive invisible wall. Currently this is conceptually possible, but the main problem here is that the Warthog run is so far out that it is outside of the level's boundaries. Not out of bounds, but what is called out of existence. In the mod tools, these green walls are collision that you can go on the other side of, but the red box is the existence barrier. If you go out of bounds past this, you literally just get deleted from the game. I'll explain another method to do this without mods in a future video. Figuring out Dead and Alive in AUP would render many of the upcoming challenges doable. I'll explain as I get to them, but the current problem with these is that the restart glitch doesn't work, and the pinched player is outside of the engine space, past the existence barrier like I explained before. Therefore, it cannot interact with the world. The closest game to having these specific glitches cracked is actually Halo 5 due to the dropout system in the campaign. As of right now, these are conceptually possible. Sierra 117 has this really small room inside this destroyed pipe here, and getting in here seems like it would be very simple. But to get in, you would need a Banshee launch that is so fast that you BAW, or break any wall. This occurs when you go so fast that you go through thin walls, and the collision doesn't even detect you due to your blinding speed. The room being so small requires you to reach that insane speed, but dip under that speed such that you stay inside the room. This is considered possible, but very, very difficult to pull off. The current theory uses a Banshee and a grenade to launch really fast. Cortana rooms are rooms that exist to load in Cortana for those really awesome hallucinations that everyone loves. They exist decently out of bounds, and some of them have been reached, like the Floodgate, Crow's Nest, the Storm, and so on. The Sierra 117 room exists right next to the bridge area where Johnson gets captured, just beneath the ground here. Considering other Cortana rooms have been broken into, this one is possible. The Warthog on Crow's Nest that blows up is an unfortunate case. It is scripted to blow up, so no form of deflecting the grenade will work. Not even load zone manipulation or getting in it yourself will stop it. This is considered completely impossible. The Covenant cutscene has been played on by Hark in 2020, but unfortunately none of the actual assets playing the cutscene were visible. This is due to how Halo 3 plays cutscenes. There is actually a specific cutscene mode that the game uses to play cutscenes. If you're in a player mode, the cutscene will not show. Hey guys, 4 months later Herm here because I got something wrong. The reason some cutscenes won't load with assets sometimes is due to the cutscene forcing a cinematic zone set to load. A zone set is basically what objects are loaded in a given area, and if the object doesn't appear, why not get rid of it? Some playable cutscenes have been done because they do not force a zone set. There are even instances of neither the cutscene or the player loading correctly, and it's overall just very strange. This is currently impossible due to the way cutscenes are made. The last remaining Cortana room, other than Sierra 117, is on the mission Cortana. Every single other Cortana room has been clipped into. The main problem is that this is further away from the mission than the entire level. Here's the Cortana room in the editor with the entire level rendered. You have to get very far out to reach it. However, despite that, this is actually considered somewhat possible. Similar to the Cortana room, this is a room placed way out of bounds for the cutscene, and it's a similar distance out of bounds to the main level. Once again, this is considered somewhat possible. The Ark has a random room above the map that stores these windy wisps that you can see from in the level.
2 months later, Herm here. I'm just now realizing it's this part of the cutscene. Please don't kill me.
It is extremely high up, and if the player exists outside of a Scarab turret, Pelican turret, or Phantom turret, and probably something else I'm forgetting, while being this high up, they just deload and instantly die. So getting upward 400 world units while inside a turret is, as you can probably guess, not easy. That's why this is considered impossible. The bridge room is a random room that exists at world origin in 3 levels: Floodgate, Epilogue, and the Ark. The Floodgate one got glitched into in 2016, and it used a really cool Phantom turret respawning technique that I had never heard of. They basically tricked the game into thinking that the only valid respawn point was inside the room, and for some reason the Phantom turret respawn radius is massive. So getting close to the room and having a second player die and respawn would load you into the room. The problems with the Ark bridge room is that it almost unloads instantly, and it is also extremely far away from the level, so you'd have to clip out of bounds very far without any launching materials. It is currently considered impossible. The main problem here is resources. A lot of the boundary breaks in Halo 3 rely on such high speeds that you BAW, using banshees, coils, grenades, pretty much anything. But for the 343 Guilty Spark boss room, there aren't any vehicles or setups to help get out. It is possible to get in, but getting out during the fight is considered impossible. The highest building in Mombasa's streets is actually out of the map boundaries, so launching to the second highest building is technically the highest launch target. The main problem here is that without acrophobia, getting all the way up there is an extremely difficult feat due to the height of it all. If you want to explore how large this launch will be, I'd recommend the No Barriers and Hover Hogs mods so you can explore to your heart's content. For right now, this is possible. On Coastal Highway, the cutscene room for the start of the level exists just below the level. This room in specific is extremely far down, and Halo falls are much harder than launches up, due to the fall timer kicking in once you go downward. This is considered conceptually possible. Data Hive has a giant elevator shaft below the elevator at the beginning of the level. The main problem here is that you need to clip and a barrier break to get in. Getting out of bounds on Data Hive currently uses a line of fusion coils, tossing a nade behind them, and getting a box to splatter yourself quick enough to go through walls. Note that in Halo, when getting a checkpoint, you are actually immune to splatter damage for a little bit. Everything else can kill you, but splatter cannot. Getting under the elevator is considered possible. This challenge revolves around this specific door at the start of Data Hive. What could be behind it? Could it be secrets that we never knew? Could it be Noble 6? Could it be David Hasselhoff? Well, if we took a look at the mod tools, there is another locked door. Sick. Regardless, this is yet to be done, and it is marked as conceptually possible. On Data Hive, there are 2 copies of these hub rooms in empty space. Getting to them requires clipping out of bounds, going 200 feet over the void, and then getting back in. The setup would be extremely luck-based and apparently not fun. This is conceptually possible. The Data Hive gas tank rooms are these little rooms underneath the grates on Data Hive. This is very similar to these rooms on Winter Contingency. These ones have been broken into, but a problem with getting into these ones is that you have less resources. But with enough fusion coils, anything is possible. This is considered possible. This is one of the ones that would become trivial with AUP, but without it, this challenge becomes very difficult. The goal is to not only have them, but be able to drop and swap weapons while holding them. As of right now, to anyone's knowledge, this challenge is impossible. The way to shrink your Spartan is to enter a vehicle in either a turret or in some cases the pilot, and the game will shrink it to simulate it leaving quickly. It's just a perspective thing. You can do it on almost every level on Halo Reach except a few. For Winter Contingency specifically, there isn't a known way to enter a turret or vehicle that shrinks. This is considered impossible. The Pelican to Pelican launch uses an elastic barrier and some time travel to spawn the barrier on the player, such that it flings the player into where this Pelican spawns. It is actually the same Pelican. 2-player Pelican to Pelican has been done by having the players hit each other to slow down and not splatter upon reaching it. 3-player would require 2 people doing a regular setup and 1 more doing this setup on the rear jet of the Pelican. This is considered possible. 4-player is unfortunately impossible, as you need a player to cross a load zone to cause the launch to happen. On Nightfall, there are 4 Corvettes that you can visit that exist in the skybox. The goal of this is to launch directly from one and land on the other. It's a pretty long launch that is mainly lateral, and due to the fall timers that exist in Halo that only start ticking when the player moves downward, this would basically have to be a straight shot that also doesn't immediately kill the player when they hit the other Corvette. This is considered possible, but farming for it requires a ton of luck and skill in how you launch, and a large pile of grenades, as the sniper pierces more grenades than the DMR and causes a large explosion. The other option is the classic Banshee concussion rifle setup like this. The problem with this one is that it is very vertical, and the launch required needs to be more lateral. The cutscene room at the end of Nightfall isn't actually loaded if you fly over there with acrophobia. In the mod tools, the cutscene room is located there, so finding a way to load it while playing that doesn't actually load the cutscene is what this boils down to. This is considered conceptually possible. One way I never thought to die is to exit the Saber during the space section on Long Night of Solace. You do have to have 2 players and be respawning to do it, but if you buffer exiting the Saber, you can get it pretty consistently. The problem is a few seconds after you exit, you die, and this is currently unavoidable, so this challenge is impossible. In the second space area, there are these side cannons on the Corvette that shoot at you. They do shoot later on in the level, but these ones aren't even enabled to be enterable. The main problem with these is that you would need to deload the pilot of the cannons before the cannons do, and the cannons and their pilots are loaded almost instantly upon getting to the space section. This is considered somewhat possible. Cedits' skybox has 4 different Corvettes. They are labeled like so. The goal is to launch from this one to either of these ones. Just like before, this will be a very horizontal launch. The current lead is using what is known as a Falcon drop. You have a Falcon fall from high up at such speed that it hits you along with getting a checkpoint so you don't die. This method gives you an absurd amount of speed, and it looks cool. This is considered possible. This challenge revolves around these shade turrets you see throughout the level, and the challenge is to get these turrets below the map and death barriers on New Alexandria. The death barriers on this level actually don't extend out of bounds, and the invisible walls are deleted when the player does the flying a Pelican Easter egg. So you would basically push the shade turrets onto the Pelican and fly them to the bottom of the map. This is considered possible. The destroyed science wing and red rooms are rooms used in the cutscene where you go underground in the package. You can get AI here like in this clip with Emil, but getting more than 2 alive things here like players in Noble Team is not known. It could be possible, but it would have to be done solo. This is considered somewhat possible. Getting vehicles rather than AI into the subway station or destroyed science wing is much simpler. It involves acrophobia, but there isn't a limit like with Noble Team. This is considered possible. The main problem here is that the ceiling of the map is actually so extremely high that the player cannot launch that high up. There is a terminal velocity in Halo, and the highest I've seen someone launch is 1,109 meters up, but you would need to get to 4,000 meters up. This is marked as somewhat possible. Just like before, there are cutscenes that deliberately don't allow themselves to be loaded while the player is playing. The goal for the Keys cutscene in specific is to also have the normal HUD. This is currently somewhat possible. Lone Wolf has a pretty high ceiling, and there's only one way out of bounds that I know of, and it basically uses the Spirit along with Armor Lock or Drop Shield to stick to it to get out of bounds. The problem here is, again, the absurdly high ceiling. This level has the same ceiling height as Pillar of Autumn, although this level does not have as many resources, so you're limited to how much you can use to launch. This is currently impossible. I hope you guys like that. I always love hearing about people doing some absurd shenanigans within the bounds of the game they play. It's also so cool that these are even considered to have an idea behind them, as on paper, they sound completely insane. I actually had another challenge that I won't spoil, but they figured it out within days of sending me the spreadsheet, so look out for that on their channel. Once again, the Termacious Trickocity Discord will be down below, and you can learn more about these tricks, or learn how to perform some, or even try to find some yourself. I hope y'all enjoyed, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.
Alright, stop, collaborate and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, flow like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop, yo? I don't know. Turn off the lights, and I'll glow. To the extreme, I rock a mic like a vandal. Light up a stage and wax a chump like a candle. Dance, rush a speaker that booms. I'm killing your brain like a poisonous mushroom, deadly. When I play a dope melody, anything less than the best is a felony. Love it or leave it, you better gain weight. You better hit the bullseye, the kid don't play. And if there was a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. Ice, ice.